Hello, welcome back. I'm Statman Dave, and it is time for Premier League predictions. We've got some wild shouts in this video, including Manchester United's league position, who wins the title, and which teams get relegated. Get into the comments below and give me all the answers to those questions. Today, we're predicting 20-1 in the Premier League. But anyway, let's get this party started. In 20th, we've got Leeds United. Leeds scored 95 goals on their way to winning the championship last season, 24 more than any other side. But Daniel Farke's basketball style will be far too open for the Premier League, and he'll be picked off by most sides. Yes, they'll score goals, but there's too much space in the transition as their front four barely track back. I do like the signing of Anton Stach, an all-action box-to-box midfielder. Stach won the ball back through tackles and interceptions 150 times in the last two Bundesliga seasons, more than any other midfielder. But because of how open Leeds are, I think they'll be finishing bottom of the Premier League this season. On to 19th, we've got Burnley. Burnley finished second in the championship, recording 30 clean sheets, the most of any team in the competition's history. The Clarets conceded just 16 goals in 46 games. To put that into context, they absolutely smashed the championship all-time record, conceding 14 goals fewer than Watford in 2021 and Burnley in 2006. With James Trafford moving back to Manchester City, we could see a big swing in goals conceded. In terms of post-shot expected goals, Trafford prevented nearly 12 extra goals, the third best record in championship history. Burnley have brought in experience in signing Martin Dubravka from Newcastle. Although a very solid goalkeeper in his own right, he's never had a season like Trafford managed last season in terms of smashing an expected goals model. Maxim Estev is a defender that I really like and could have a breakout season. Tall, quick, good in the duel and left-footed. The Premier League big boys will be circling by the end of the season. With Burnley, they probably have the best chance of staying up due to their defensive style. Over the years, that's kept teams in the Premier League. Think the likes of Chris Wilder's Sheffield United, Brentford or Nottingham Forest in recent years. But I don't think the quality of the squad is good enough, so Burnley will be down in 19th. In 18th, we got Sunderland. The Black Cats had the youngest squad in the Championship last season, with the average age of their starting 11 at just 23.4 years old. That would be younger than any team in the Premier League last season. Sunderland combined this youth with head coach Regis Lebris. Lebris is renowned for working well with young sides and did wonders with Lorient in Ligue 1. The Premier League, though, is a different beast to the Championship, and another massive test for Sunderland's saplings. They lost Joe Bellingham to Dortmund and Tom Watson to Brighton, but they've signed very well. Dingara and Talbi will add real quality to their flanks. Enzo Lefebvre has completed a permanent move following his loan. Sunderland have also reinforced their midfield with Granit Xhaka and Habibi Diarra. Under Xabi Alonso, Xhaka completed more progressive passes than any other player in Europe's top 5 leagues. And while watching Strasbourg last season, I was very impressed with Diarra. He's a player whose skill set will balance out Xhaka with progressive ball carrying, receiving high and tackling. As much as I like Sunderland's signings, AFCON could derail their season. Dingara plus Diarra and Talabai could potentially be unavailable from game week 17 to 22, and we all know how important the Christmas period is to staying up. To 17th, I've got Brentford. I'm predicting Brentford to struggle, especially at the start of the season following the loss of their greatest manager of all time in Thomas Frank, and potentially their best ever Premier League player in Brian Mbeumo. Thomas Frank's job at Brentford was nothing short of extraordinary. In terms of wage spend on the squad, which directly correlates to league position, Frank has dealt with one of the lowest budgets in the league, twice ranking 20th, once 19th and once 17th. To produce league finishes of 13th, 9th, 16th and 10th is exceptional. Thomas Frank has outperformed wage spend on average by 7 places in the Premier League, a true Brentford great. And Mbeumo, on the other hand, was the main driver for Brentford's goal scoring last season, a record 66 goals for them in the Premier League, more than the likes of Chelsea, Villa and 22 more goals than Man United scored. And Mbeumo was directly involved in 27 of them and finished the season with 20 goals and 7 assists. If Visser follows Mbeumo out the door, that's 39 of the 66 Premier League goals that they scored last season gone, which is hard for any club to take. I do like Keith Andrews and hope he does well, but for this season it may just be battling to stay in the Premier League. In 16th we've got Wolves, another club that's been ransacked by the Manchester clubs. Matheus Cunha has moved to the red half of Manchester and Ryan Aït-Nouri to the blue side. That is a lot of quality gone. Matheus Cunha, as quoted by my good friend James Bird, he was the best player he's ever seen at Molineux and could win the Premier League with United this season and win the World Cup with Brazil on the way to the Ballon d'Or. Yes, even as the most positive United fan, I think that's a little bit too far. However, Cunha did carry Wolves' offense on his back, scoring 15 goals and registering 6 assists. Aït-Nouri was also involved in the goals, 4 goals and 7 assists, the most amongst defenders. Wolves have attempted to replace this thrust by signing Andre's teammate from Fluminense, John Arias. The Colombian winger created more chances than any other player at this summer's Club World Cup. It's going to be another tough season for Wolves, but I still think they've got enough quality to stay up, with Strand Larsen's goals and Agbadou at the back. On to 15th, we've got one of last season's surprise packages, Bournemouth. This season will be a dogfight for Adoni Iraola. Bournemouth have lost 4 of their back 5 from last season. Kepa's loan ended and he rejoined Chelsea, then was sold to Arsenal. After an incredibly impressive season, Howson joined Xabi Alonso's Revolution at Madrid, Kirkes joined Liverpool, and Zabarnyi has moved to Champions League winners PSG. For Bournemouth to sell 3 defenders to Real Madrid, Liverpool and PSG is something that you'd expect to see on Football Manager, so massive credit to Bournemouth's recruitment. But they're all gone now and that makes Bournemouth weaker. To replace these stars that they've plucked out of obscurity is very, very difficult. We've seen this over and over again in European football, from Dortmund to Monaco to Leverkusen. Good young teams getting absolutely ravaged by Europe's elite clubs. For that reason alone, Bournemouth will have a tough season, especially defensively. On to 14th, and Crystal Palace have finally bought a wing-back, a key position in Oliver Glasner's 3-4-3. Borna Souza joins from Ajax and could be one of the best value transfers of the season, arriving at just 2 million. Souza didn't really fit the Ajax profile of a footballing left-back. The former Stuttgart man is very much a crossing wing-back. Get the ball to him in wide areas and he'll sling it into the box. During his time at Stuttgart, Souza registered 9, 8 and 7 assists in 3 Bundesliga seasons, and like Daniel Munoz, has the perfect skill set for Glasner's system. Along with adding a new left wing back, Palace have kept their potent front 3 together so far in the window. Mateta, Sarr and Eza scored 63% of Palace's goals in the Premier League last season. Only Brentford trio and Bumo, Visser and Sharda scored a higher percentage of their team's goals. After winning their first 2 trophies in their 164-year history, Oliver Glasner will want to cement himself as a Palace legend and should be focusing on the Conference League in my opinion. Palace will be one of the favourites, and to win 2 massive trophies in back-to-back years would be an incredible achievement. Consequently, a mid-table finish for Palace is gonna happen. In solid mid-table, we've got Graham Potter's Irons. Irons, Irons, Irons. This should be a stabilising season for West Ham, moving to Potter's style of play and building for the future. Potter has stuck with a 3-4-3 system in pre-season and the shape looks like it could get the best out of West Ham's team. A narrow front 3 would suit Bowen's goal-scoring instincts and Luis Paqueta's creativity, as well as target man Nicholas Fulcrook's hold-up play. Pushing this trio closer together should be the main idea of any tactical changes for Potter this season. Potter's Brighton were very tactically fluid and could line up in a variety of shapes: 3-4-3s, 4-4-2s, 4-4-2 diamonds, or even 3-5-2s. But maintaining the trio of Lucas Paqueta, Jared Bowen and Nicholas Fulcrook will be key. I like the signings of Malak Diouf and Kyle Walker-Peters. Diouf will add drive from the left-hand side and whip deliveries, which should be a dream for Fulcrook and Bowen, whereas Kyle Walker-Peters has the required tactical intelligence and technical quality to play under Graham Potter, having played his best football under Russell Martin. If the Hammers manage to buy a top-class midfielder like Southampton's Mateus Fernandes, I could see them finishing in the top half. Without a new central midfielder though, West Ham will beat some big boys on their way to finishing 13th. In 12th, we've got Fulham. Fulham have literally done nothing in the transfer window. They haven't got any better, but they haven't got much worse. With a whole host of massive changes in the Premier League, this might be a good thing, as teams like Wolves and Brentford have lost their key players. Anthony Robinson and Alex Iwobi are very much still the first 2 names on the team sheet for Marco Silva. Robinson finished the season with 10 assists, the most of any defender, and Iwobi scored or assisted 15 goals, twice as many as he managed in the season before. Marco Silva Silva tends to field the pair on the same flank to devastating effect, most notably in their 3-2 win versus Liverpool. In terms of the pair, there isn't much talk of the American and Nigerian international as a combination on the left wing. For me, one of the most underrated fullback winger combinations in the entire Premier League. Fulham will continue their development under Silva and have a 12th place finish once again. On to 11th, we've got Everton. The Blues let 11 players leave in the summer and are undergoing a massive rebuild. I like the signings of Tierno Barry, Keenan Drewsbury-Hall and Adam Esnu. Barry is the latest striker coming off the Villarreal conveyor belt, scoring 11 goals in 25 starts in La Liga last season. Drewsbury-Hall has the quality, and we can't forget he was directly involved in 26 goals in the Championship with Leicester. The move to Chelsea was stupid, where he started just 2 Premier League games, but he'll have a new lease of life as David Moyes' number 10. And finally, I know Adam Asnu from the UEFA Youth League. He's got real class going forward from left back. He scored 2 goals and registered 2 assists for Bayern Munich's under-19s. In spite of these signings though, Everton need more creativity. They need more goals. And now they've got that in Jack Grealish. We've got to remember the Jack Grealish that carried Aston Villa's attack. In his last season, he scored 6 goals and got 10 assists. That is the Grealish we all want to watch, with creative freedom, the ability to drift around and become the focal point of the team. This is what David Moyes really needs. He needs a hub in the final third, a player that can dictate the offense by himself. I got so bored of watching Jack Grealish in Pep Guardiola's boring system, consistently taking the man on, cutting the ball back, passing it back into midfield. Boring, boring, boring. Grealish should be reborn in Merseyside and is a big reason why I've got Everton in 11th in the Premier League. It's time for the top 10. In 10th, we've got Nottingham Forest. What a season Nuno Espirito Santo's men had. An FA Cup semi-final appearance, and on the 1st of April, they were sat 3rd in the Premier League with a gap of 8 points to 4th place Chelsea. The Reds look destined for the Champions League for the first time in their history, but a terrible run of form followed, with just 2 wins in the remaining 8 games in the Premier League, eventually finishing 7th. Following Edu's appointment as global head of football, Forest have brought the Samba to the Midlands. Igor Jesus and Jair Cunha joined from Botafogo over the summer. Both players were instrumental in Botafogo's first ever Copa Libertadores victory, South America's equivalent to the Champions League. We could see Nuno Espirito Santo field a 4-4-2 with both Chris Wood and Igor Jesus up front. Both players work exceedingly hard off the ball and provide a physical quality in the box when Forest are whipping those crosses in. Forest sold Anthony Elanga for 55 million over the summer and have replaced him with Daniel Ndoye. The Swiss international scored 8 goals and registered 4 assists for Bologna in Serie A last season, and has similar traits to Elanga. Maybe not as quick as the former Manchester United winger, but has equal ability when it comes to progressing the play with a carry into the final third. Ndoye will be one of the players leading the charge on the break for Nuno this season. I expect a slight drop off in Forest's league position as they're competing in the Europa League for the first time in their history. The Thursday-Sunday schedule is grueling, and given that Nuno Espirito Santo is very much a believer in tactical periodisation, I think Nottingham Forest might not be as competitive as they were last season in the Premier League. In 9th, we've got our biggest underachievers this season, that is Newcastle United. Who would have thought getting rid of your director of football just before a transfer window would have a terrible impact on recruitment? Newcastle have missed out on the following players this summer: Dean Howson to Real Madrid, Liam Delap to Chelsea, Joao Pedro to Chelsea, Matheus Cunha and Brian Mbeumo to Manchester United, James Trafford to Man City, Hugo Ekitike to Liverpool, and Benjamin Šeško to Man United. A shamble of a window compounded with the fact that Alexander Isak hasn't trained in pre-season and is trying to force a move to Liverpool. The last time Newcastle got into Europe's Premier competition, injuries caught up to the Magpies around November and their league form fell off a cliff. The same issues will re-emerge here. A very strong first 11 but no depth to the squad, and at the time of recording, no number 9. The expectation of Newcastle fans will be a top 4 finish, and I've got them in 9th. Massively underachieving after a brilliant year because they got rid of their director of football in May 2025 without a plan. In 8th, just missing out on European football, we have Brighton. In 2025, only Manchester City, Liverpool, Arsenal, Villa and Newcastle picked up more points than Huertela's side. Estepinian and Joao Pedro have gone and been replaced by Maxime de Kuiper, and Charles Lampos Kostelas. Kostelas is definitely one for the future. He was part of the Olympiakos side that shocked European football, winning the UEFA Youth League in 2024. In the tournament, Kostelas scored 5 goals and registered 2 assists in 8 games. The Kuiper, on the other hand, is ready for first team action. In his last 3 league seasons, he's been directly involved in 29 goals from left back in Belgium's top flight. With a full year of Premier League management under his belt, Herzl will come into this season with knowledge of the league, his opponents and his squad, so expect another 8th place finish for Brighton. In 7th, I've got Spurs. Thomas Frank is a massive upgrade on Ange Postecoglou in terms of the defensive side of the game. Spurs conceded 65 goals last season. Only Wolves, Leicester, Ipswich and Southampton shit more. And that was a major problem for Spurs' consistency, conceding too many goals. But also the lack of adaptation from Postecoglou. Frank is the polar opposite. Pragmatic, well-organised in defence, adaptive pressing structures and excellent from set pieces. Spurs once again should punch above their weight class under Frank. They'll no longer be married to a system and will interchange between back 4s and 5s under the former Brentford manager. Spurs have lost club legend Heung-min Son, whose legs were probably done for the Premier League, and replaced him with the enigmatic Mohamed Kudus, a similarly styled tricky forward to Bryan Mbeumo, a player that likes to cut inside from the right wing and shoot with their stronger left foot. But what Kudus hasn't developed yet is consistency. In his first season at West Ham, he was directly involved in 14 Premier League goals. Last season, only 8. Thomas Frank has a track record of improving forwards, and Kudus is the next project. We're also likely to see the best of Dom Solanke, who played his best football in the Premier League under a similar pressing coach in Iraola. Solanke scored 19 goals in the only season under the Spanish coach, which led to his move to Spurs. Bournemouth played far more direct to Solanke than Postecoglou ever did as Spurs manager. This is likely to change under Thomas Frank, who doesn't mind a direct pass into the feet of a striker. That's Tony. So I expect to see Solanke score closer to 20 goals than his 9 of last season. Spurs' improvement defensively, combined with improvements of key attackers, will see them massively grow from their 17th place from last season. And as I mentioned before, that's exactly what Thomas sides do. They overperform. In 6th, we have Manchester United. This is probably the hardest club to call in the Premier League. We've got to remember they finished 15th last season, scored 44 goals. Their worst ever numbers in Premier League history. A rubbish season. But buying Premier League looks like a pretty decent strategy. United have signed the top scorers from Wolves and from Brentford, so that should pull them out of the relegation battle. Combining that with the signing of Benjamin Šeško, who's got elite potential, United might actually score a few goals this season. Since moving to the Bundesliga in 2023, Šeško scored more goals than any other player aged under 23 in Europe's top 5 leagues. Šeško, Mbeumo and Cunha scored more goals in all competitions last season than the front threes of Arsenal, Chelsea, Man City and Spurs. Realistically, Manchester United should be a lot better this season. They understand the shape and system that Ruben Amorim is trying to build at United, the 3-4-3. The pressing looks better, the football looks sharper, looks quicker, and Man United have now got forwards that they can pass the ball into their feet and it's not going to come back. And Mbeumo and Cunha are very good at receiving the ball in the final third. There's something that Manchester United massively struggled with last season. It meant their opponents could continue the pressure on Man United's goal and they'd eventually wilt. So there's a lot of positives, but United have not strengthened the defence or at goalkeeper. Onana and Bayindir do not inspire confidence in United's backline, and conceding a goal at the wrong time led to a lot of defeats and draws last season. That is an area that needs to be improved before the end of the window. I've got United in 6th right now because I think they're playing 1 game a week. So number 1, the results should massively improve. They can train more, they can prepare more, they can recover more. But looking at the next kind of step, 6th is quite high up the league, I do understand that, but the quality is definitely there. You've got to remember that Man United have got both Bruno Fernandes and Amad Diallo still in the squad, 2 players that actually were quite good last season. But the important areas to improve, of course, are in goal, but also in central midfield. United need to work out what to do with Bruno Fernandes. That's him being a forward, that's him being a midfielder, but which partners work best? Ugarte, Casemiro, or Kobbie Mainoo. For me, United should just go with the attacking side of it and go with Mainoo. You know, allow him to play as the 6, allow Bruno to play high, just try and break teams down by scoring more goals than the opposition. But I still think the goalkeeping area will hold Manchester United back. If United were to sign Carlos Baleba and Donnarumma before the end of the window, they will get into the top 4. That is a big if, though. Let's just caveat that. So right now, Man United with a much better season in 6th. In 5th, we've got Aston Villa, who still have one of the best managers in the Premier League. Only Man City average more points per game in 2025 than Emery's Villa. I think the 2 big bits of business this summer that Villa have done well: number 1, they've kept Ollie Watkins, and number 2, they've signed an attacker. Obviously, Marcus Rashford was on loan at the second half of the season and did well, but Evan Gasson is a player that I really like, capable of playing on the right wing as a striker or as a number 10, who's directly involved in 20 goals in Ligue 1 last season, playing across a whole host of those positions. For me, he'll be perfect as Emery's second striker or as his number 9 and Emery's 4-2-2. And talking Ollie Watkins, that is massive. Holding Ollie Watkins for Aston Villa is humongous. Since Emery's first full season in charge, only Erling Haaland and Mohamed Salah have been directly involved in more goals than Ollie Watkins. But they still got the likes of Morgan Rogers, Yuri Tielemans, Pau Torres and Emi Martinez, some of the best players in their position in Europe. And I fully expect Emery winning the Europa League this season and finishing in the top 5. That is a realistic aim given their squad. On to 4th, we have Chelsea, who just beat the best team in Europe 3-0 to lift the Club World Cup. Once again, Chelsea have spent a boatload of cash, with only Liverpool spending more in the Premier League. In terms of what Chelsea needed, they needed a number 9, and they've strengthened that position really well. Joao Pedro and Liam Delap are 2 good Premier League players. It's only pre-season, but Joao Pedro seems to have genuinely taken Chelsea up a step. His quality on the ball, in possession and being a threat in the air when the ball is wide, massively important for Chelsea. Whereas Delap is very much a different option, a pure English striker. So I think goals are not going to be a problem for Chelsea this season. The 2 options they've got there, and then all the attackers that they bought as well, which we'll talk on in a little bit. I do like what Enzo Maresca is doing in terms of his squad building. The big thing though that I feel Chelsea might need to do before the window closes is sign a new left-footed centre-half. Levi Colwill will miss the majority of the season after doing his ACL. Chelsea last season conceded the 3rd fewest goals in the Premier League, but were 6th by expected goals against. So teams were slightly underperforming against Chelsea in front of goal. So I think the biggest area where Chelsea need to look is that position. They need to get a Levi Colwill replacement. They have signed Jarell Hato from Ajax, but very much he is a left back. For me, he's not got the physicality to immediately succeed in the Premier League as a centre half. And Chelsea once again have entered the market to sign some wingers. Estevao joins the football club after his first season in Brazil, where he started at the age of just 16. He finished as the competition's top scorer with 13 goals and 9 assists. Jamie Gittins has joined from Borussia Dortmund and will play as an inverted winger on the left, but Chelsea definitely need another left-footed centre-half to push into the top 3. On to 3rd, we've got Manchester City. Last season was a real transitional year for the Sky Blues. Kevin De Bruyne, Gundogan, Carl Walker all really dropped off a cliff in terms of performances, and they weren't replaced. The attacking signings didn't really pan out, and Rodri only played 66 minutes of Premier League action before rupturing his cruciate ligament that ruled him out for the season. But the signings in the last 2 windows for City have been fantastic. Omar Mamouche was the best forward in the Bundesliga. Kusanov and Hayes could be 2 top centre-backs for the future, and Ryan Cherki will add real creativity to Manchester City. He ranked in the top 1% for wingers and attacking midfielders, for progressive passes, shot-creating actions and assists. Haaland needs to be fed the ball more, and Cherki could be that guy. He got 11 assists in Ligue 1 last season, which was more than any City player managed in the Premier League last year. Moving on to other signings, Ryan Aït-Nouri was much needed at left back. City struggled in both of the fullback positions last season. Gvardiol, as much as his quality in the final third, is far more suited in the centre-back position. Aït-Nouri will be able to hold the width in the final third. In terms of goal involvement, he had the most of any defender, and naturally is going to make the system better. And Reinders is the Gundogan replacement. He scored 15 goals in all comps for AC Milan last season, will add a much-needed thrust in the centre of the park. This is the next phase of Guardiola ball. Rodri, though, is likely to miss the start of the season. season. And Reinders is probably going to be the player that will deputise. As we mentioned before, he's a goal-scoring midfielder. He doesn't really tackle, intercept, he's pretty bad in the air, but he can play and he can carry the ball well. So it's all going to be about how Nico Gonzalez can adapt if Rodri keeps struggling with injuries. But looking at that attacking lineup, fitting the likes of Shirky or Mamouche with Erling Haaland in the team, that should score a lot of goals. But I feel like this will be another year of transition for Manchester City and Guardiola coming up with the next evolution of football. That is what I'm excited about. But I expect them to start slow and finish well, as they always do. But a third place finish for me for Manchester City. On to second place, last season's champions Liverpool. Their signings look fantastic. They've signed some of the best young players in Europe who have improved problem positions. Over the last 2 seasons, Florian Wirtz has scored or assisted more goals than any other midfielder. He is an assist monster. One of the most exciting players in the world with the ball at his feet. He is very, very creative. But the big question is, can Mohamed Salah continue his record-breaking form? 29 goals and 18 assists is an insane return. 47 goal involvements in 38 games is absolutely nuts. But he only managed 2 goals and an assist in his last 9 Premier League games of the season, after Liverpool crashed out of Europe and lost to Newcastle in the Carabao Cup final. Effectively, the league was won, and Salah really slowed down. But if Arsenal were closer, would Salah have picked up his form? These are the big questions for this season. I'd also throw in that the issue comes a little bit with youth this season. They've gone from having players in their prime in Trent Alexander-Arnold and Luis Diaz to Florian Wirtz and Frimpong. I do think they're 2 top quality signings that eventually will be brilliant Premier League players, but there is adaptation from the Bundesliga to the Premier League. They've also bought a different type of striker that's well suited to slot style, but could be very unreliable in front of goal. Ekitike underperformed his expected goals more than any other player in Europe last season. Yes, he's fantastic playing off each other and bouncing passes and shooting from outside the box. Where he needs to improve is in the penalty area. So for these reasons, Liverpool will finish second. Number 1, Salah can't keep up this crazy form. Number 2, teams will start to work out Arne Slot's tactics more than they did last season. And finally, replacing players in their prime with young players is always going to take a little bit of time. And that is why I got Liverpool in second. So this season, I predict Arsenal will win the league because they finally bought a striker, and a very good one at that. During his time at Sporting, Gyökeres scored more goals than any other player in Europe with and without penalties. This is what Arteta's Arsenal have been missing. It's been obvious for all of us. A top quality centre forward. But it also gives Arteta the option to play 4-4-2, Havertz and Victor Gyökeres in certain games, either when they're dominating the ball or chasing to get back. I think this Arsenal squad now is ready to win the Premier League. We've got to remember they had a horrendous season last year in terms of injuries and still challenged. You're thinking Ødegaard was out for half the year, Saka was out for half the year. That's 2 of their best players under Arteta. They would have been a lot closer to Liverpool had these 2 players been fit. But now they've also strengthened their team. They've signed that number 9. They've bought players like Zubimendi that looks like he's been playing for Arteta's style and system his entire career. LAKEY looks like a great alternative option on the left-hand side. Mosquera has great defensive coverage. Norgard and Kepa provide great depth. This Arsenal squad at the moment is ridiculous, but also the age of the squad is coming into their trophy-winning era. The balance is good, and finally they've got that number 9. I just think this season is Arsenal's year. They've spent the money, they've bought the prime striker. This time is for Arteta. So this season we're predicting Arsenal to win the league. Let's finish things off with a quick fire round. So I'm going to go for a number of categories. Get into the comments below and answer them yourself. First up, top scorer of the Premier League, going to go with Erling Haaland. Next up, top assister, Florian Wirtz. Top tackler, going with João Paulinho in Thomas Frank's Tottenham. First manager to be sacked, Daniel Farke. Player of the season, Victor Gyökeres. Young player of the season, Miles Lewis-Skelly. Underachievers, Newcastle. Overachievers, Tottenham Hotspur. Big predictions. Get in the comments below, let me know your thoughts, and we'll see you in the next one.
Thanks for watching. If you've enjoyed this video, why not check out some more content on the Statman Dave YouTube channel.